You're good.
Call the July meeting of the CB Board to order. First item, obviously after the call to order, is the election of officers. And we're ready for any nominations from the floor. As is the norm, we normally start with the chair, we go to the vice chair, and then secretary treasurer.
I'll nominate Gary as chairman.
Be happy if there's anyone else that'd like to serve, be happy for them, for another nomination. If not, then I'll ask for a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, like sign. Vice Chair. Floor is open for nominations. CB, okay. I'll be happy to second that. Any other nominations? We'll let nominations cease. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed by like sign. Secretary Treasurer. Again, asking for nominations.
I nominate Jim McBride.
He's not here to defend himself.
That's right.
Any other nominations? We have a motion second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Jim wasn't here to vote against that. Okay, so let's move on to item number 3.
Come up with some new position that's really terrible.
Well, he's lucky he's not chairman. It's the way I see it from this.
Well,
This is not the meeting to miss.
Baptist church is usually best way to get to be chairman of the
That's
committee is not to
exactly
be
right.
there. So, anyway,
Nominating committee, so.
Yeah.
Catch yourself.
Good idea.
item number 3 is the public comment session. I see no members of the general public, so let's move on then to item number 4, which is the approval of minutes of our prior meeting. We have all had an opportunity to review those minutes. Are there any additions and/or corrections? Hearing none, I will ask for a motion and a second for their approval.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Let's move on then to item number 5 then, which is the approval of the vouchers. We've had in our packets the opportunity to review. At this time, I will ask for any questions or comments relative to those vouchers. Hearing none, I will ask for a motion and second for their approval.
Make a motion to approve the vouchers.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Let's move on then to item number 6, and let's call on Mr. Fagan for review and our approval of the monthly reports for the month of May.
Chairman, before you have the revenue and expense summary for the year through May 2017. The electric department had a really good month with a net income of $279,000, and the water department just came a little bit under breaking even there with a loss of $4,300. Overall, we're still on target for the revised forecast that I gave you last month, and of course the electric department is far exceeding the forecast that we anticipated when we did it last year. So electric department is 101.5 million ahead of the forecast, and the water department is 59,000 behind the forecast. We're still optimistic that the water department is going to manage to get into the black for the year. I'm hoping anyway. So
Is that
we'll
because of
just
the
have to
capital contribution or something?
No, there are a lot of year-end adjustments that we have to do. Gadsby 68, our health fund's done well this year. That'll give them a credit. Our bad debt's done well, as you've seen, and we'll talk about it a little later, so that'll help. Those things, I think, will end up helping the water department, and I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll end up in the black. Now, we won't meet that forecast of 85,000, but as long as we're in the black, the state's happy. And with the kind of cash that we have in the water, 291 days cash, we're never really worried about what the bottom line is, but the state likes for that number
It's
to be in the black.
depreciation
so-
is the problem. You know, you got 6,000 customers, you got millions of dollars in capital, and that requires depreciation. So our cash is great, we have no debt, and really, our expenses are minimal. It's the depreciation that sinks us all the time because we have so much in capital in that.
And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman, unless there are any specific questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? If not, pardon me, I will ask for a motion and second for the approval of the monthly reports for the month of May.
I'm sorry, I do have a question.
Sure.
Okay.
If
Go right
we
ahead.
don't make it to the black, I'm just asking, hopefully we will, are there penalties for that?
No, not if you do it 1 year. The state expects you to be in the black after 2 years, and even then, there's not penalties. They expect you to make the adjustments to get you in the
Make it,
black. But,
okay.
of course, we would argue that with our cash position, it's
right.
not that big a concern, you know. With some utilities, if
But
you're
they don't
down,
look at that.
if you're down to no cash, then and you're in the red, then you got a problem, so.
What the state does, and it's appropriate, in my opinion, is because they have to set the standard across the state for utility companies and utility districts and municipals like we are. You know, there's a different run on some of these, and how they're run, because politics can be such an overpowering way to depress rates that they are no longer viable. They don't charge sufficient rates to cover their operating cost. So the state says, if you can't manage well enough in order to have a financially strong system, we will step in and we will set the rates for you. That's essentially what they would do if they saw that you had a trend of a negative income. That's nothing more than an indicator. It's an indicator to get their attention. It's not a call to action unless everything else that you have falls into this, oh my gosh, you're not charging sufficient rates. We obviously, our cash position continues to increase. You know, we meet all of our obligations and we're debt-free. That, I'd say, that puts us in the top quartile across the state anywhere. We're in tremendously good shape. The deal is because depreciation is considered an expense on the income statement, it has a dollar-for-dollar impact on what our net income is, and that's why it dips below. We're going to be, if we're unable to cross that black, and again, we would have another year even before the indicator went up, certainly this next year, because I'm going to tell you in a little bit about some grant money, and that gets back to Charles's point about capital contributions, and that will push us over the line certainly next year. So I'm not concerned at all about the fact that we flirt between the red and the black on the bottom line on this.
If I remember right, as I was looking at the report, I think we got 19 more days cash than we had in July of last year. Therefore, that shows that non-cash expense is what's kicking us, depreciation.
Right.
It's
That $1 million, right there.
You know, you've got $1.1 million in this department. We have 6,000, customers. So, and, you know, we're talking about a $25 a month bill, you know. That's a big mountain to overcome, which is why we're able so comfortably to ride out some of these projects that we're doing, some of the improvements that we make. I mean, these are high dollar things, and we're able to do that because we float on this cushion of cash that's able to take and fill the potholes as we go through that without, as some utilities have to do, in order to get $500,000. If they're behind the eight ball by that, they have to raise their rates so dramatically because, again, you're looking at $25, $30 a month income in a revenue stream, and to make up for $500 or $1 million, it's a big increase. We're not talking about 5%. That's why our friends right down the road had a 50% increase for 3 or 4 years in a row. 50% increase for 3 or 4 years in a row, and they're still tremendously behind the eight ball. We won't have that. We don't have that problem.
Debt-free is huge too, because you don't have to pay, what would show on here would be interest expense, but not the principal, and when you're making $500,000 principal payments every year, that's huge too, so.
If you're sitting on $2 million and interest rates are 45 basis points, you're not making you're not making hardly anything. But should interest rates rise, and potentially at 2 million, if they go to 5%, for example, you know, you're looking at more than enough by itself to be more than what we would make in net income. It will more than double our net income. I mean, 2% would put us into the black easily, you know, on something like that. So as interest rates go up, if you've got the cash to invest, we're going to see where it says interest income. I mean, we've got $7,500 year to date. I've seen interest income when rates were high where it was $200,000. You know, and we get into that 12, 14, 18% interest, which I hope we never see. You know, but to me, it's not unreasonable to think that we're going to one day be able to invest and get a 5% return. And when that happens, if we still have the cash to invest, that will support that bottom line tremendously.
Any other questions, comments? No, we do have a motion, we do have a second, but we do need to vote for the approval of monthly reports for the month of May. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, like sign.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I must have missed who made the motion in the second.
I'm not sure that we had a motion
Oh.
or second.
Well, I'm sorry, I thought we did, excuse me.
I thought we did too.
I thought it was both of them
I think
down
I
there.
questioned before anybody spoke.
Before you voted. I think
Before we voted, we had the
Yeah,
motion
I think we
second, but
did.
that was before that we voted. Now,
I apologize, but I just missed who made
okay,
it.
I think I made the motion, and I believe you seconded, I believe.
I think so.
That's-
For
if I'm not mistaken,
for the vouchers, but not the monthly report.
okay.
This is being videoed, you know, so
Let's go back and make another motion
Guess
in a
what?
second.
Guess what? Said time out. I stand in stupor, I suppose, then. I do need a motion. I need a second for the approval of the monthly reports for the month of May.
I make that motion.
I'll make the second.
We have a motion second, for sure this time. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed by like sign? Okay, let's move on to item number 7, which is the project status report. I'm gonna turn from this direction down to my right, call on Mr. Bowles.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your project status report, as you see, we're transitioning in projects with the end of the fiscal year ending 17. And we have 2 projects that were completed. One was completed several weeks ahead of schedule, and thus the revision. The Claxton substation Phase 2 is now complete. We have taken delivery of the first transformer, placed it into service. And as a matter of fact, today we took delivery of the second transformer and placed it on the pad. Fortunately for Dudley, he won't have to pay for that until Phase 3, which is going to be in this next fiscal, or the fiscal year that we're in now, FYE 18. So those two jobs are complete, and we'll move to your closing report. And we have two jobs that you approved last month with our capital outlay that are included in that. The New River job, as well as the Rock Bridge Road job, and both of those are just started and being worked by our own forces. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Is that final numbers on the cost of the projects?
No, ma'am. The way that works is the accounting generally lags 4 to 6 weeks behind the construction for payroll and everything to roll in and invoicing and so forth. So that's why we move things over to this closing report. We let all the costs percolate there until we're convinced that it's all finished, and then we will close, Dudley's people will close the work order.
Okay, I thought that looked almost too good to be true. I was just curious.
The acronym for that, which is uniquely accounting, is POST. It's payroll, overhead, stores, and transportation, so they post to those accounts. So
Okay.
once that's posted, then we'll have an actual number.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Why are these two on the closing report if they,
Because they're complete, the others will roll over those completed ones, and now that's just pending. So we're showing you ones, once they are shown complete, we want to show you that they are complete, that the construction is finished, and then they roll over to this pending report, which we can do away with this. I mean, we added it one time because there was confusion the other way, but this can be confusing too. This will stay pending until all of those post numbers are applied to it, and then that pending will become closed, and then you'll actually see what hit the books. So everything that is functioning and current is on your original report, and then you'll see the percentage of completion. Once that is complete, it's on there and shows construction is complete. The following month, it rolls over to this report, and it'll stay on this report until all those numbers are applied to it, and then it'll say closed, and then it'll be on there 1 month to show you that it's closed, and then it'll roll off. And right now, these two are open, but the construction is complete. It was completed last month, and these numbers are not on there. That's why Ernie said 4 to 6 weeks. It's a timing thing. Next month, you'll see these as closed with an actual number associated in this closed work order column, and then they'll roll off the following month.
You'll have to hold your arrow in its quiver until, we get to close there, Charles.
We're saving this for next month, Charles.
Exactly.
After you're not
You're
here.
drawn back, I guess.
It was closed, and we pulled it back out to pending.
Any other questions
I won't be
regarding?
here, I won't be here next month to
We,
point that out.
we know that.
On your part?
It'll still close out.
We have actually, there are
When we
three,
get to the closing report next month, we'll FaceTime you.
there are actually 3 pages of the closing report.
We've been holding him.
2015 June.
Okay. All right, we've reviewed project status reports. Let's move on to item number 8. We do have some work orders for approval. Let's just stay down to my right here. Say, Mr. Bowles, let's talk about work order number 485, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Work order 485 is in your capital outlay for this year. For $125,000 was our initial budget on that. Again, the initial budget is arrived at based upon typical cost per mile figures and some little mojo and magic that we stir into that to make it what we think is going to be close. In this particular case, after we got finished with the field engineering, we estimate that this work order will be $122,265, and that's with a 10% contingency. This is a job to replace a section of line that has been very troublesome for us in the last few years. And with this aerial cable, which is really, really good stuff that we've been using now since the late 90s in certain select areas, we feel that this is going to greatly improve the reliability of service, and we would like to ask your approval to proceed with work order 485.
Are there any questions or comments?
About how old is the line they're taking out?
The, the section of line at the beginning is number 4 copper. We quit putting that up in the 1950s. So it's pretty dadgum old, Charles. I think we wrung all the life we could out of that rascal.
Can't appreciate that anymore, huh?
No, we're gonna get salvage off of it though, cause it's copper.
That's right.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion and second for approval of work order number 485.
So moved.
Second?
Have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Mr. Bowles, let's stay with you, and let's talk about work order number 490.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Work order 490 is our third and final phase of this major facility upgrade that we've been working on now for several years in our Claxon substation. This is in your capital outlay for $800,000. We're estimating $785, as you see, and change. This will include the second power transformer, all the construction and modifications necessary to put it into service, all the testing, certifications, and final commissioning of the station, all the oil spill containment, which is regulatory, required by the EPA. And of course, you've already approved the purchase of the transformer through a PO, and it's the lion's share of this expense at about $450-something thousand, if I remember. So that's the lion's share of this. The rest is foundation work, bus renovations, testing, and commissioning. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and aside from questions, we would ask your approval to proceed with work order 490.
Any questions or comments? I will entertain a motion and second for approval, work order number 490.
I make that motion?
Second.
Have a motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Like sign. Staying with Mr. Bowles, or, excuse me, no, let's move down to Mr. Hawkins. I'm sorry.
This project, let me paint you a picture because you probably haven't been to the wastewater plant, but imagine a large concrete structure that's 60 feet in diameter and about 15 feet deep. And it holds a certain material that we treat at the wastewater treatment plant. And everything inside of that concrete structure that holds about 300,000 gallons is metal. And it's been in there about 25 years going around and around. And the center spur gear has been replaced it has been replaced. It had been repaired 3 times. It needs to be replaced. So we did an evaluation, brought a contractor or the manufacturer in. He looked at everything that we had. We drained it. He looked at all of it. He said, you need to repair or replace everything metal. That's what this project will do, is repair or replace everything that's metal in that basin and bring it back up to where hopefully it will last another 25 years. We had it budgeted at $190,000 in your capital outlay, so it is a project that's been in the budget, and the budget's been approved. So The work order will do the work. Most of the work will be done by the treatment plant staff themselves that are very skilled and able to install it. Of course, most of the cost is in the materials itself, the equipment and the materials.
I could say Dan does a great job because what we look at and what we try to do in all of our departments is we look ahead. That's why when Ernie looks at these thermals on these line extensions, we balance out cost and need and timing. And Dan, on this clarifier, when we looked ahead, we do a 5-year plan. This was in our fiscal year 2019 plan, but because that what escalated that is the fact that it's failing. We don't want to wait until it stops. And every time we spend a lot of money, like we did at the water plant, where we rechanneled some of that in the beds that were down there, the ponds that we had, and how we now repurpose that over to the wastewater treatment plant, which has worked very well for us, and it's going to be an ongoing cost savings. Dan looked at this. This is a primary clarifier. We're going to repurpose that to a secondary clarifier, which better serves the balance of what we have over there. And now's the time to do it. He's going to have the superstructure painted and repaired, and we're going to have a 25-year piece of equipment that someone else will have to deal with 25 years from now, but this ought to get it. So much of what we have, it seems like it's in this quarter-century turn, Apparently, we really did well 25 years ago, because a lot of what we're putting out is 25 years old. We've got some pumps later I'm going to tell you about that are 25 years old that we're going to be repairing. But this is, I think this is a real good example of how we, in timing, do repairs, replacing, and when appropriate, repurposing what we have down there to best suit the balance of our whole plant. So a good job on that, in my opinion.
Any other questions or comments?
I do have a question. Is that the water treatment plant that's down,
No, it's the wastewater treatment plant. It's in South Clinton.
okay, but it's on the water in South
Yes.
Clinton?
Yes.
Yes, it's on the river.
Okay, I've just noticed sometimes early morning, there seems to be some spill out or
Everything that goes through the plant, we treat to go
Yeah.
back into the river.
okay,
So yes, and at times, you'll see the river swell just a little bit. I mean, I wouldn't want to be kayaking there right at that moment in time, but it's all good.
it's treated,
It's treated when it hits the,
I can assure you that it's treated. We have a National Pollution Discharge Elimination Permit that we've got a qualified lab down there and laboratory analyst, and they do a great job of treating that wastewater. As a matter of fact, the wastewater that goes into the river is always cleaner than
in the river,
itself.
yeah.
okay, well, I was
We
just
maintain
curious
it.
because
Which
I've
is really
seen a
cool
film
because
on
we
that
take all of our
sometimes.
water out of the river
Yeah.
and then treat it and then put it in our water lines.
Okay, I
You
was just
know.
wondering, I've always wondered what that film was that I see sometimes, so I'm just curious.
No, the film's not us.
No, it's not us.
No, that's, you're looking at pollen.
Yeah, that
Film's
is
not us.
Definitely not us, because the water going into the river is clear. You can take a
Okay.
glass of it, it's perfectly
Okay.
clear. It's chlorinated, before it goes in the river. It's, like I said, it's actually better than the river. There is no film,
Okay.
nothing.
Okay, that's good.
It is good. The,
Okay, it's real good.
When the state comes down to visit, the state says
Yeah,
it's one of the
okay.
best plants they've ever seen.
Okay, I'm not questioning that. I agree with,
I always like to promote it when I get a chance, and
okay,
thanks for bringing it up.
I hear you, I hear you.
I'm not kayaking right there at that moment in time, I'm just saying.
Biggie's gonna be taking pictures of the film.
It's more of a,
No, I'm not.
it's more of a mental thing.
How many water treatment plants do we have like this?
Just one.
That's the only one?
That's all we need.
One wastewater treatment plant, one water plant. And like Dan said, it's award winning. We've gotten awards on that, so. Good.
Yeah, we try to hide it back in the trees, but we're proud of it.
Yeah, that's good.
And we do have, I'm not sure the percentage, but we have a lot of capabilities or capacities
Yes.
remaining, do we not?
Yes. Yes,
What are
do.
we at now?
We're about, 2/3 capacity.
Any other questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion and second for the approval of work order number 859S.
I second. I second and third.
Motion
Should've
a
been able to
penny,
make that.
I know.
second by Vicky. Okay,
I was trying to beat her to it with all those questions.
all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. All righty. Let's move on then to an item that I was pleased to see. Mr. Fagan, I'm gonna let you review our write-off accounts for, for the last year, excuse me.
Okay, thank you. This is something we're really proud of, and if you look at our neighbors, I can show you one right here. They're a bigger utility just down the road, but you see 1.8 million and 2.5 million right there was their write-offs the past 2 years. Now you say, well, they're bigger, but they're only about 8.5 times bigger than we are. And if you extrapolate that into what ours is, you're nowhere near that. And that number you saw there was their net. So if we go back to 2009, that's where we hit our peak on our gross write-offs. And when you look at the list, the detail that's on down here, you'll see the detail that adds up to this 104,000. But we started FlexPay, and I'm not sure how much y'all understand FlexPay. Do you understand FlexPay, Vicki? It's our prepayment program for our customers. We knew that if we got them going within 2 years, we would see a huge benefit in that, because these people can't get too far behind. You know, when your power's cut off and you got to pay $400 to get it back on, it doesn't leave you a lot of choice but to skip if you ain't got it. Under this program, they're never but $20, $30 can get them back on when they're off. So they'll always do that as opposed to skip, because even if you're moving out, you still like the lights on, you know. And most of these people that were skipping back here, I don't think that was their intent to skip. They just got in a situation they had no choice. So we started FlexPay in 2013, April 2013, and after a year it kind of helped out, and every year it's gotten steadily better. So our total write-off is $104,000. Now, oh man, this thing drives me nuts. All right.
Dudley's having technical difficulty today.
All right. This is our write-off recovery. This is the amount where if we've written them off in prior years and they come back, they usually come back. And then, you know, I like it when we say, well, you know, you owed us from before, you know. So these are accounts that we've written off in prior years. And we're up to 83,000 that we've recovered back. We set them up on a program, and we do a 70-30. And they pay, if they pay $1, 70 cents goes to their new in the tank they can use, and 30 cents goes to their old debt. And you say, well, how much could that add up to? Well, let me just show you. This is pretty impressive. This is as of right now. We have 2,194 active prepaid customers. Today, our total debt recovered, this is paid,
Wow.
$548,000. You know, that's money we wouldn't have got back, probably.
The reason is, historically, if you owed us money, to get back on, you had to pay all of that. Now this provides them a way to get utilities and for us to start recovering that money, you see?
So you take your total write-off of $107,000, you got 83 back, and I'm sorry.
Better use those little arrows, Dud.
All right, I'm too far now. All right, so your net is $20,808. We got $86 million in sales, $20,000 in net write-offs. That's 0.024%. Now, 0.024% is 24 one-thousandths of a percent. 24 one-thousandths of a percent of your sales is write-offs. And even to me, that's unbelievable, you know, which goes to show you the program works. The program also benefits the customers hugely. You know, they're not paying late fees. They're not paying trip fees. All that. They know what they're using. They don't have the bill shock of opening a bill and saying, oh my gosh, I owe $400, you know. They know every day. They get all those alerts and all those messages.
They're not having to pay to get their power turned back on again either.
Well, they
Right.
are, but it's in the flex pay.
It-
And here's my thoughts on that. If they couldn't pay the bill when they left,
Right.
how are they gonna be able to pay what they owe to come back? So, I mean, I'm impressed with that, the fact that we're recouping all that money that we would have not gotten. The question, yeah.
Of the buck.
Another question I have is, do some of our local, other local utility companies offer the flex pay like we're offering?
Some can't. It starts with the AMI system that we
The
put in
ability.
2007.
Yes.
You know, you gotta have the technology to do it, to read the meter every day to do it. And then some have started, they've got into it a little bit, but they're not really that dedicated to it. It starts at the front counter. Your people have to believe in the program, to explain it to the customer, to get them set up to where they wanna do it. And it helps, if it's more trouble to set a customer up because you gotta set up their alerts, you gotta explain it to them. So if your people don't believe in the program, they won't sell it. If they don't sell it, it won't work.
And Dudley, you need to tell them, I'll tell them, that, you know, you were instrumental in the creation of this program. Dudley was on the tech board that helped design this thing. He was the one that pushed it in order, because the need for the customer that is the most vulnerable, and that is, what does it cost for your utilities? They were putting a month's worth of utilities in fees and reconnect charges. If they got cut out, they had to pay a reconnect charge, or they have a trip fee where we have to send somebody to go collect, or we cut them out. You know, they were drowning in the fees. And really, these are the most vulnerable folks. So what can you do in order to meet that need? Because they can't come up with the security deposit, do you see? They can't stand the trip fees, they can't stand the late charges, and they can't stand the reconnect fees. And we can't stand
Not to have them.
the write-offs, do you see? So what do you do? This is, this builds on what we already have, the technology that we already have. So we're able to touch their meter from here. Do you see, we can turn it on, 4 o'clock in the morning, you wanna get your power back on, you can do that. You know, and we're not sending guys out to make that happen. I mean, what's the turnaround from if you're off from the time you pay to your time your lights get back on?
On this system,
Yeah.
less than 15 minutes.
Less than,
Most of the
yeah,
time,
well,
less
you
than
can't even
5.
drive home if you,
Less than 5.
Yeah. So-
And it's all automated.
Right.
We don't have to do anything. See all these alerts down here? 477
Today.
call alerts yesterday.
yeah.
425 text alerts, 1,750 emails. We didn't have to do anything. Once we set them up, that automatically happens. So they're getting an alert on their phone. Hey, you're down to $5.
They set what that is. When do you want me to alert you? You know, well, if I get to $25, alert me, you know, or
Yeah.
we're down to 5, and I'm telling you, you can always borrow $20 from somebody, do you see? But you can't borrow $600 because you wrote a bad check. Now you gotta pay you paid a late fee, gotta pay a reconnect fee, you gotta pay a trip fee, and you gotta pay a bad check fee, and you're still $300 behind, you see? This has been a godsend, I think, to the people that needed it most. And it's really $20,000 on an $86 million revenue stream is Dudley has been asked, and he has gone best practices. He has sat on panels, and he has shared, the good fortune and how to do it. And like he says, what motivates you is what you're doing for the customer. Do you see? How can we provide a service that's going to improve the life of our customer? And this is it, and that's what he sells to our customer service reps. If someone comes in and they need an extension, or their lights, they're ready for a cutoff, or they've already been cut off, how do you get back on? Get back on with a FlexPay. And the first thing we'll do is we'll apply your current deposit to the amount that you already owe. So you don't have to pay anything out of your pocket right there. We're going to apply that to what you already owe, and part of that can go to get your service back on. And then you walk out of here with your lights on. And it's like a gas tank. It has a picture. You have to pay for that, I think.
No, I drew that one.
Because it shows almost an empty tank. You control it. You're not going to go for a joyride when you almost have no gas. You see, and you'll always be able to tell how much power you have in reserve. So whether or not you want to turn that in the summertime down to 70 degrees, or you want to keep it up at 76, it makes a difference. And you can actually key that in and say, oh my, we need to grill out,
Right. This kiosk we've had, I've sat here and watched cars going by. I guarantee you, most of those people are FlexPay customers that are going through there.
Right.
They're paying $10, $20.
There's been a couple just there in our
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah, it all works. It all works.
It says here, the payment average is less than $40. Right?
Right. Yesterday you had 32 disconnects. We didn't have to initiate that. The system alerted them, says, hey, if you don't pay, it's gonna cut you off. It cuts you off. 31 of them paid, got it back on. As far as CUB personnel, we didn't have to touch any of that. In the old days, we're rolling trucks, to cut them off, and then they
There's a
call, we gotta roll
safety issue
back,
With that too, as you can imagine.
So it's a win-win for everyone.
Accelerates replacement of that asset too, that vehicle. You sleep on
I got you.
But we need your approval of the bad debt write-offs, of the 24 1,000th of a percent write-offs.
I make that motion.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. I tell you, I saw that, and I don't mind telling you, I'm going, if there's any question about whether or not this program works, that ought to tell you, it works.
I just want to commend the efforts to you, Dudley, and everybody here for making
Amen.
that happen for our customers.
Thank you.
And I'm not trying to dislocate my shoulder here, pat myself on the back, because I've been on the board for a while, but this shows the board's vision, previous boards, in getting the technology approved as far as the dollars and
That's
cents
right.
necessary for that, and getting it in place so that we can do this. And I think it's a wonderful, wonderful service for our customers. I truly do. So, thanks, everybody, for putting it all together, bringing it to the board. Thank you. Other business?
I do have some. Next month, we try to bring you annually a review of our self-funded health program, so the board can have a sense of how the funding for that is going and where are we going in the trajectory of health cost, which includes all of our health benefit and how we fund it. So we'll look for that next month. I can tell you that we wanted to thank Jim for his presentation on this bond issue down with the city. Roger and Gail were a great help, and of course the mayor. help shepherd that through with the city council, which went through just as smooth as it could possibly be. We appreciate all their help in that. And Dudley now is working with our friends down at the Tennessee Municipal Bond Fund, which we know our good friend Bones and Steve Queener, who we love, and Linda Mooningham, who's we've known for years and years down there. They're so easy to work with, and we should be able to draw down on that bond issue very in the very near future. And that way, we'll be able to draw down as necessary. So all that's a positive thing, and everybody in our city has been real supportive in helping us make all of that just as smooth as it could possibly be. I have a phrase here, it's called grants come and grants go. And I thought, just for a few minutes, I would give you a little bit of background for some of you that may not know, because some of you remember back in 2014, as we courted 3M Corporation, they purchased and renovated the old Food Line distribution property here in our Eagle Bend Industrial Park. And we, from the get-go, we had to work hard to nail them down on what electrical needs that they had, and also nail them down on what water and wastewater needs that we were looking for. And I think Ernie helped them cost savings and combined to a 1 meter point delivery point, and worked through the transformers and helped them with that, and all that went fairly well. They gave us what they projected they were going to need, and that constituted a power contract that was necessary to put in place. And we always counsel them, as we do everyone, don't ask for more than you need. I mean, everybody apparently in the home office, wherever that home office is and whose ever home office it is, they just ask for the moon. They want to reserve the moon, and a table for 50 when they only have 3 that's going to show up. But that power contract is an issue that they're dealing with right now because they're in a place where the minimum kicks in. So they're working with that. But that's not the focus of what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to get down to this issue with the water and wastewater, because we couldn't get them to give us this maximum gallons per minute, which is so vital to what we need, because we have a limited system. If you think of a straw, there's only so much wastewater that can go through that straw. And what they originally told us that they needed, which meant that there was no capital infrastructure that we needed to accommodate them with, because we had sufficient collection system in the ground in order to accommodate what they initially told us that they needed. And then that doubled once they got here. And we had sufficient in the ground to accommodate that. Then it went over 10 times what they originally talked about needing, and potentially more as this master plan phased in. We quickly saw at the time, because Eagle Bend was also talking about doing an expansion. So with the ramping up of what their projected needs were, with Eagle Bend talking about expanding, it was obvious to us that the current system in place would not be able to support this new maximum flow that 3M projected that they would need, and the potential expansion, which Eagle Bend actually did expand. We didn't have sufficient capability or capacity in the ground in order to transport this back to our wastewater treatment plant with what we had. So what we did is we immediately got plans to see what would it take in order to accommodate their potential needs going forward, that would meet this master plan and the projected flows that they had. And that took a river crossing. What we do now is everything that comes up from Eagle Bend goes through town. What we found that we would look in order to meet this need was a force main that would go down and across the river and then over to South Clinton. That's a $2+ million project. So in 2014 and 2015, we cobbled together with the state on this fast track money. We had $760,000. A local match would have been about $500,000 from 3M and $250,000 from Eagle Bend, and a federal economic grant for $830,000. So I mean that we had the ARC as a backup in case any of that fell, but we had that in play, which would have been $2,340,000, which would have given us this run force main across and through the river and then down over to South Clinton, which would have met their maximum projected flows and everyone else's, because we've got all that industry down there, and we even have some residential folks that are on that line that were constantly moving. Well, once the funding was approved and we had that worked out, we needed a commitment from 3M in order to meet their funding obligations, which was $500,000 of the $2,340,000. And that, at the time, was a workable deal because they had incentives that they could shift and then refocus where if it was going to be employee training, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of money moving around that they could have directed and redirected in order to meet this obligation, which would have minimized their out-of-pocket money. But they never indicated that the amount of money was an issue. It was a non-issue. You know, that's, don't worry about that, don't worry about that. Well, of course, we won't commit to a project until we've got all the players and stakeholders signed on the dotted line. We're not going to let bids out and expose ourselves, you know, to pick up that. Again, you know, we're a small utility. So we were unsuccessful in securing that assurance, and apparently as the world oil prices, because oil was tied with their product line, as those oil prices started to decline, so did the viability of their local product line, and their production has depressed on that, only on this product line. 3M's a great company and a big company, and we're hoping that improves. But the bottom line is, and I always like to get to the bottom line, is those funds that we cobbled together to make this $2+ million capital project work that would go to the sewer plant is gone. The state, and we held on forever, and we tried to be quiet and keep our head down in order to give 3M an opportunity to say, you know, whatever you do, if you don't do it now, when the time comes, because we don't have the capacity to meet that need, you're going to have to fund that thing. And we'll try to help you with grants at the time, but we've got it now, and there's no assurance that we're going to get it in the future. And if that's the case, and you're going to expand your production line, all of the cost for whatever we need to do to provide that capacity for you is going to fall on you. So that apparently doesn't bother them either. You know, there's nothing that we could do that would ignite them to make a move to approve, because it's going to take us 18 months to make this thing happen anyway. So if in their horizon, if they see anything in their horizon, it would have made so much sense, but who is in the position to make those decisions for them? Certainly not us. Without the river crossing and that force main, CUB is unable to accommodate this master plan expansion that we have. And all of that current flow was going to be on their dollar, and we have made that crystal clear. So we'll try to help them when the time comes, but no assurance of that. All of that said, that puts the burden back on us. CUB, to maintain this current aging collection system that we have. And this past year, we performed what's called ice pigging on the sewer line in the industrial park. And that's a process where they bring out this equipment and they put this ice slurry into the line. And they pump it into the line. And then they put a pump on that and they force that through the line at such a velocity that the ice within this slurry scours the inside of the pipe, because we're working on an 8-inch line that over the years has collected this sediment and debris, so that 8-inch line is starting to get smaller. In other words, there is a coating on the inside of the line. This ice pigging was designed in order to scour that and essentially recapture the volume in that line that it originally had to give us a more capacity, because we have to serve them currently. We have to serve Eagle Bend's expansion, and we have to continue to serve the natural growth within that area. So do we have in place today what it'll take to do that? And the answer is, with these improvements, we can. We cannot, there's just no way we can do or if a new industry comes in, something else will have to be done. So with all of that ice pigging, and there are mixed results on how effective that was, and we're still working with them on that. This process effectively improved our volume capability within the lines. Now, this year, we have to address the pumps that move it. Because essentially, we've got 3 that we're working with. It starts at Eagle Bend, it comes up to Techmere, and then Modine, and then goes back out into the system. So these 3 pumps that we're talking about are 29 years old and older. So we have to replace the pumps. That's at a tune of $345,000 to make all of that happen. So what we did, this is a have to. What we did, and this is also as a capital project in your budget, what we did is we enlisted Tim Thompson at ACETA to try to help us secure from the state a 1/3, 2/3 grant. Local will be 1/3, state will be 2/3. Now, we're just coming off of this, giving up the grant for this fast track of $760,000. You say, if you're into the grant business, you need to understand the state doesn't like to approve a grant and then have it not be used. You say, it's not good. We had an ACETA ETA meeting that we were at, and we cornered the state rep, Tim and I, and we had a conversation as we are divesting ourselves from this one grant. We're now trying to talk them in on essentially the same project on a new grant that's flowing stuff a different way. Of course, they want to know, why did we ask for the $2.3 million on this end if a $345,000 was a fix on that other end? And that was not an easy discussion that we had, but we did. We talked to him, and I think we argued well and convinced him that that was something that he pursued, that he was willing to pursue and support for us. We just got word this week that the $230,000 grant, which is the 2/3 of the 245, has been approved. We don't have the paperwork for that yet, but that's been approved, and we ought to see the $230,000, which will put $115,000 to, and we'll essentially have an improved collection system in the Eagle Bend Industrial Park, and that should work today and tomorrow and for a while further, unless we get something big in, and then we're going to have to be talking about going back across the river.
And it makes Dan's books look better.
It will definitely, and that's what we talked about when we get to the.
Except the depreciation, yes.
Right, it'll do,
Add to the depreciation.
it'll give us another good year, because it'll go right into that line on that 230 capital improvements. So I wanted to take the time to give you some background, because there'll always be, is CUB working with us. We jumped through all of the hoops like pretzels trying to help this industry. We wanted them to make a smart choice. And if there's any expectation of them changing their product line, because they have divisions that they bring in, and, different divisions, they rent out to different divisions. It's a great big place. And if they need this, we're gonna have to go across the river, and someone other than Cub is gonna have to pay for that, So, that's where we are. I think it's good news. We're proud to get to 230. We appreciate Tim and everyone else that was associated with helping us secure that grant. But that's what I've got.
That sounds good. I'll start down to my right, CP.
Nothing else?
Good. I just want to compliment again the work of CUB. The more meetings I attend and the more I learn, I'm just more and more impressed by your all's foresight and proactivity and vision for being good stewards of our customers' money. But compliments to the four of you sitting here. It's the electricity, the water, the flex plan, and of course none of that'd be possible if it wasn't for good leadership. But compliments to the four of you and your teams. This is very, very impressive to learn what all's going on and all the good that's happening.
Thank you. The good news is in time, you'll become immune.
I doubt that, but
Anything else? We stand adjourned.